My sister's husband wept at her funeral, like a man being watched. That's what I couldn't stop thinking about. Standing 3 rows back, her journal pressed flat against my ribs beneath my coat. Not. He wept like a man who loved her, like a man being watched. I noticed the difference. No one else did. The chapel was warm. That part I remember because I'd buttoned my coat to the throat and couldn't take it off. Lauren's journal sat against my sternum like a second heartbeat, and I was afraid if I moved wrong, someone would hear it. Nathan stood at the podium in a charcoal suit, shoulders trembling, voice breaking on her name. When he set his hand on her casket, fingers spread wide, knuckles white, a woman in the third pew started sobbing. 2 more followed. The room leaned toward him the way grief rooms do, like he was the center of it, like he deserved to be. I watched his eyes. Every time his voice cracked, he tilted his face toward the ceiling, just slightly, just long enough to look like a man asking heaven for strength. The timing was perfect. That was the problem. Not grief, not shock, not the jagged, animal thing that happens to people who wake up and the person they loved is simply gone. This was built, beat by beat, until everyone in that room had forgiven him for existing while she didn't. I had driven to her house that morning before the service, before anyone expected me. I told my mother I needed to collect a few things. She squeezed my hand. "Take your time, honey." She meant with grief. I meant with the search. Lauren and I were 11 months apart. Irish twins, our dad used to say, like he'd invented the phrase. We shared a bedroom until I was 14. Traded secrets like contraband. Could finish each other's arguments with our mother before either of us took a breath. When she married Nathan 6 years ago, I stood behind her and pinned her veil while her hands shook with happy nerves. After that, the calls got shorter. Her voice got smaller. She trailed off mid-sentence and changed the subject. I was wrong every single time. Her closet still smelled like vanilla body spray, the cheap Target kind she'd worn since college. I pressed my face into one of her sweaters and breathed until my knees gave out and I had to sit on the carpet with both palms flat on the floor, just to feel something that wasn't moving. Then I started looking, not for donation piles, not for shoes, for the things she had been trying to say in those last phone calls, the half-sentences, the starts that went nowhere. Never mind, I'm being dramatic. Nathan says I just need more rest. Second shelf, left side. Persuasion, Jane Austen, hardcover. A book Lauren had borrowed from me in 2019 and never returned, which I had long since stopped asking about. I pulled it down because it was mine, not because I suspected anything. The pages had been cut out in a crooked rectangle, paper edges rough against my fingertips. Inside sat a small leather notebook, worn at the corners, the kind you grab near a register for $9 and promise yourself you'll use someday. She used it. Every page, her handwriting, dates in the margins, dosages, times, symptoms, side effects. Questions she'd had to answer herself because asking him had become something she'd stopped doing. This wasn't panic writing. This was evidence. Methodical, patient, terrified evidence from someone who no longer trusted the person controlling her medication. The early entries were careful, almost apologetic. Felt dizzy after dinner again. Nathan adjusted my evening dose. Didn't tell me. I found the bottle later. A week later. Nausea, still bad. He says this is normal. I checked online. It isn't normal at this level. Then the handwriting changed. Harder. No cushioning. No polite doubt. He measures my pills himself now. He won't let me see the bottles. And then the line that made the room go thin around me. If something happens to me, it was not an accident. I read it once. Then again. Then a third time. Because maybe repetition could make it less true. My hand stayed still. My chest didn't. It kicked against my ribs so hard I could feel each beat in my throat. I didn't call the police in a shaking voice. Didn't call my mother. Didn't drive to his office. I documented. Page by page, front and back, I photographed the entire journal with timestamps visible in each frame. I copied dates into my own notes, cross-referenced medication names, wrote down every phrase that looked like fear disguised as compliance. Then I slid the original notebook into a plastic zip bag from Lauren's kitchen drawer, pressed out the air, and tucked it deep into the inner pocket of my coat. I locked the front door behind me, stepped into the driveway. Nathan's silver Audi turned in. Tires crunching over gravel, engine killing, door opening. He straightened his tie in the window reflection for exactly half a second before he looked at me. My shoulder bag, the house key in my hand, my face. He read all three in the order a careful man reads things. Then he smiled. Warm, tired, grateful, like we were two people carrying the same unbearable weight. I smiled back because my body understood survival faster than my mind understood danger. The walk from her porch to my car was maybe 30 feet. It felt like crossing a frozen lake and waiting to hear the ice crack under you. I drove 4 blocks before I pulled over hard, doors locked, forehead against the steering wheel. Lauren's journal pressed against my ribs through wool and cotton, her last sentence moving through me steady and merciless, like a second heartbeat. She had written it down so someone would find it, and she knew, long before the end, that no one else was coming. That night I called her phone. I don't know why. I knew she wouldn't pick up. It rang 4 times, then her voicemail. Hey, it's Lauren. Leave me one. 6 words, bright, careless, untouched by the last year that had stripped her down to bone. I played it twice. Then a 3rd time with my eyes closed, trying to pin down the exact lift in her voice on one. That small upward curl, like she was already smiling at whoever came next. Nobody was coming next. I set my alarm for 6, slept maybe 90 minutes, and drove to a pharmacy the next morning with my hands shaking so hard I had to press both palms against my thighs before I could trust myself to open the car door. Nobody tells you grief migrates. It doesn't stay where you put it. Monday morning, I was on the phone with the patient records office, voice level, requesting Lauren's refill history like any responsible family member. My free hand pressed flat against the journal in my coat pocket the whole time, holding it there like a wound I couldn't stop touching. Monday night I was on my kitchen tile, yesterday's sweatshirt, a half sleeve of crackers beside me, a dish towel clamped over my mouth so the neighbor downstairs wouldn't hear what was coming out of me. On Tuesday I found her grocery list in my coat pocket. She'd slipped it there 3 weeks before she died. Our stupid running joke hid lists in my stuff so I'd accidentally buy her almond milk. Eggs, almond milk, that good soap, call mom back. 4 items. Her handwriting. And that last line tore me open wider than the journal ever did. She never called mom back. There wasn't time. Still, morning kept showing up like it owned me. So each day became an assignment I hadn't agreed to. I learned to split in half. The version people could see. Red eyes, quiet voice, canceled plans. The private version. Awake before dawn. Cross-referencing dates in Lauren's journal with pharmacy records. I was collecting slowly, legally, 1 request at a time. What I found made my throat close. For 11 months, Lauren's heart medication was picked up every 28 days, almost to the hour, always by him, never by her. Then the last 3 months changed. 22 days between refills, then 19, then 15. More medication moving through that house than any normal dosing schedule could explain. I didn't know the clinical term yet. I knew what it meant in plain logic. Pills were vanishing faster than one woman could take them as prescribed. Meanwhile, Nathan wore widowhood like a tailored suit. Every Thursday he placed a single white lily at her grave and told anyone who asked that Thursday had been her favorite day. It wasn't. Saturday was. Bad cooking shows, burnt popcorn, Lauren laughing while the smoke alarm screamed over the TV. He had 6 years to learn that. He chose not to. He posted a black and white photo of their wedding hands, caption about forever being too short. 46 comments, everyone calling him brave. I screenshotted every single one and added it to the file. Because I had already called a detective that morning. I want to be honest about something. I was terrified of being the unstable sister who couldn't accept natural causes. Nathan was Dr. Nathan Cole. Steady hands, soft voice, head of cardiology at a respected hospital. Published researcher, devoted husband who fought so hard at her side. Against that, instinct is noise. So I built paper. Every page of her journal photographed in high resolution. Pharmacy records pulled through estate authorization. Lauren's text history through our family plan. Every message he sent her in the last 90 days. Did you eat? Take your meds. How are you feeling? Read alone. It looked like care. Laid beside her journal entries about nausea, confusion, and the line she'd written in March. Everything looks gold and wrong. In handwriting that had started to tremble, it looked like something else entirely. I reached out to a forensic toxicology consultant on my own dime. Money I had set aside for the April trip Lauren and I never got to take. She said one sentence that changed the architecture of everything. In routine postmortem cases, cardiac glycosides like digoxin can be missed unless the lab is specifically told to look for them. Standard panels often don't catch it. Lauren's autopsy had used a standard panel. Cause of death: cardiac arrest, secondary to chronic heart failure. No one went deeper because no one had a reason. Except her journal. I requested targeted testing on preserved specimens, if any remained. Then I waited 3 days to find out whether they'd been retained or destroyed. They were retained. I authorized the testing, paid the fee, kept my voice level through the call, signed the check without smudging my name. Then I sat in my car in the parking garage with the windows shut tight and played Lauren's voicemail until the battery threatened to die. Because I needed to hear her, somehow, tell me I wasn't imagining this. 2 weeks later, a manila envelope arrived. So thin, it looked empty. I opened it standing in my hallway, coat still on, keys still in my hand. One word stamped across the findings summary: inconclusive. I read it 6 times, waiting for the letters to rearrange themselves into confirmed, detected, anything. The parking garage smelled like diesel and wet cement. I drove there without deciding to, sat in the car for 40 minutes, engine off. The report on my thighs heavier than paper had any right to be. Toxicology doesn't care about your sister's handwriting. It doesn't care that she hollowed out a copy of Persuasion because she was afraid the man sleeping beside her would search her things. It cares about concentration ranges and assay limits. And the standard panel had never been built to find what I was asking it to find. That night, I almost stopped. I stood under the shower until the water ran cold and my skin began to sting, and I stood there anyway, just feeling the pain of it, because at least it was something to feel besides failure. In the mirror, I looked borrowed. Dark half-moons under my eyes, cheeks gone narrow, jaw sharpened by missed meals and timelines spread across my apartment floor like evidence tape. By midnight, Lauren's journal was open on my bed again. March 19th, 11th read. He counts them now. He watches me swallow. 3 lines later, my hands shake in the morning and he tells me it's anxiety. But the shaking started after the new dosage, and he knows that. He knows. I shut the journal, pressed both palms flat against the cover until the leather warmed under my skin. Then I called the forensic consultant back. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Voice even and unsentimental. Standard panels miss cardiac glycosides all the time. Targeted immunoassay is what catches what routine screening leaves behind. The first report hadn't cleared him. It had looked in the wrong place. I authorized a 2nd round of testing the next morning, requested the retained samples, signed the release forms, paid for specialized cardiac glycoside analysis at a facility with the right tools. The money came from Lauren's life insurance, the same policy he expected to flow straight to him before I filed the beneficiary dispute. Then I waited. This time I didn't pace. I built. Every evening after work, I sat at the dining table with Lauren's journal, a spreadsheet, and pharmacy records spread under the buzzing lamp, paper edges nicking my fingers, highlighter ink staining the side of my hand, refill dates that didn't match prescription intervals. A dosage increase entered 3 days before her symptoms escalated, an increase her cardiologist told me later he had never approved. Appointments that should have happened but didn't because someone had canceled them for her. In public, his timeline was spotless. Devoted husband, tireless caregiver, the man who drove her to every visit, which meant he chose which visits she attended. I mapped everything. Color-coded columns, dates cross-referenced against journal entries, medication logs overlaid with symptom notes until the pattern tightened like wire pulled taut through the room. Then, on a Tuesday night, at 11:47, my phone lit up with a blocked number. I answered on the 2nd ring. A woman's voice came through thin and shaking, like she was speaking from inside a closet. Stop digging. Avet inhale. You don't know what he'll do when he feels cornered. Then the line went dead. Not faded out. Cut. Sharp and deliberate, like she had memorized the threat and forgotten what came after. I stayed in my kitchen with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to static, the refrigerator hum. She had called to scare me into silence, but by the time the line went dead, She was sobbing harder than I was. She wasn't protecting him. She was surviving him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on my bedroom floor until dawn, knees aching. Lauren's journal open across my lap, the page where she had written about the way Nathan worked a room. He lowered his voice until everyone leaned in. He repeated your words back, slightly altered, until you doubted what you'd meant. He reshaped every question, so each answer landed where he wanted. Lauren called it the gravity trick. You didn't feel yourself getting pulled. You only noticed when you tried to walk straight and found yourself circling him again. The woman on that blocked number had the same tremor in her voice that Lauren described in herself 6 months before she died. That tight, breathless shake, like someone speaking with a hand around their throat. By sunrise, I had made a decision that had nothing to do with rage. I was done being useful to his silence. The results from the second round arrived on a Thursday. Not a manila envelope. A secure portal. Password prompt. Single PDF. I locked my office door before opening it. Lunch sat cold beside my keyboard. Targeted immunoassay detected what routine screening had missed. Retained tissue samples showed repeated digoxin exposure above therapeutic range sustained over time. Not one bad day. Not one dosage mistake. A pattern. I didn't cry. My hands stopped moving. My breathing leveled. Something under my sternum changed shape. Grief, turning structural. Cold. Load-bearing. Like I had been standing in rubble for 11 months and the ground had finally decided to hold. I printed the report. Slid it into the dossier beside journal photocopies and pharmacy anomalies. Formatted everything for formal submission. Every claim sourced. Every timestamp verified. Every page built to survive cross-examination. We filed everything with the district attorney that afternoon. No cameras. No speech. A sealed referral and request for investigative review. Quiet. Procedural. Built to outlive his charm. What came next was slower than people admit when they talk about justice. Weeks. Then more. Interviews set, moved, reset. Covert medication cases are brutal to prove. The threshold is unforgiving. Every claim has to survive expert attack. While all of it moved forward without me, life kept insisting on itself. I still bought groceries under fluorescent lights that made everyone look sick. I still paid rent. Still answered emails. Still woke at 3 a.m. with my chest locked tight, like someone had parked something heavy on top of me and walked away. One Tuesday, organizing documents for a follow-up interview, I played Lauren's voicemail by mistake. Hey, it's me. Call me back when you get this. 7 words. My legs gave out before I understood I was falling. I ended up on the kitchen tile, cheek against cold grout, crying so hard I couldn't draw a full breath for 20 minutes. Not the controlled grief I'd been portioning out like medication. This was raw, loud, wet, animal. When it passed, my eyes burned, my throat tasted like metal, and I felt hollowed out and lighter at the same time. Then his mask slipped. Not in a dramatic way. Not in front of a crowd. In a recorded interview, he gave a medication timing detail that didn't match what he had told the medical examiner. A tiny difference, precise, easy to dismiss alone. Impossible to ignore next to everything else. Formal review escalated to active investigation. I didn't hear it on the news. My attorney called at 4 p.m. while I was folding laundry on my bed. I still remember the pillowcase twisted in my hands when she said, "They're moving forward." I sat down slowly, like the room had tilted and I needed to catch up. I didn't speak for a full minute. I just breathed. That night I drove to the cemetery for the first time since the funeral. The seam in the ground had disappeared under new grass. The place looked almost ordinary, and that hurt in a way I wasn't prepared for. I didn't bring flowers. I brought her journal, the original, not the copies, and held it to my chest like something that had kept me warm when nothing else could. I said one thing into the dark. I heard you. Every page. Every warning you were brave enough to write when saying it out loud wasn't safe. Wind moved through the trees above me. Restless, alive. On the drive home, Lauren's voicemail was cued on my phone. For the first time in 11 months, I didn't press play. Not because I'd forgotten her. Because I finally didn't need to hear her voice to know that she had existed, that she had fought, that she had trusted me with the only thing she could. I put the journal back in the safe deposit box the next morning, and I left one message, through the only channel I could reach my attorney's contact information for the woman on the blocked number. in case one day she needed someone to believe her too. I didn't get a cinematic ending. I got something harder to describe. The feeling of having carried someone's truth through every system designed to ignore it and refusing to let it be ignored. She wrote it down. I made sure it was heard. That was always the job. If someone you loved tried to warn you, slipped it between the pages, hid it somewhere, only you would think to look, would you be the one to find it? Subscribe. Next week's story starts the same way this one did, with a funeral, and a person in the room who already knows something no one else is supposed to know.